Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's episode number 48 of the Audible Farm Podcast. This week's episode is brought to you by Couchtown Coffee. Couchtown Coffee is my favorite coffee. I'll tell you one reason why it's my favorite, because it's located right here in Iowa. I'll tell you another reason why it's my favorite. It's probably the best coffee ever. It's the freshest. I'll tell you another reason why it's my favorite. Because they sponsor the podcast and they help me get it out to you guys. So I really appreciate them for doing that. And one of the other things they like is they like the local music. And since you're listening to the podcast, and since Couchtown Coffee is that awesome, they've brought you a promo code this week. And if you enter it this week, it will save you 20% on your order. And this week's promo code will work from the 15th through the 21st, and that's August 15th through August 21st, and that's how long it lasts. So don't snooze on this one, because it's only going to last a week. So this week's promo code to save you 20% on your order is regional. And why is this week's promo code regional? Because I am interviewing the guy who interviews everybody on the Regional Rock Hour. That's right. If you live in northern Iowa and you've heard of the Regional Rock Hour, bless you, because it's an amazing show. It's on the radio. It's on 92.1 out of Fort Dodge, Iowa. It's on Friday nights. Mason is the DJ that hosts it, and he just talks to a whole bunch of musicians from around the area, and some shows they have coming up, and just whatever he's got going on. And he doesn't, he does a lot of interviews too. I found out with, other people too. And he's got, we talk about that in the upcoming podcast. But one thing is, I definitely got to tip a cap to Mason, because this is, I say it like first and foremost in the interview I did with him, that it was kind of one of the things that was an inspiration for me to start my podcast, was doing what he's doing. And, I look up to him, and it's a great deal. So I'm glad I could sit down with him and have a nice long-form conversation with him about what kind of led him up to being the Regional Rock Hour guy, and being a radio DJ, and some of the things that go along with that. I also gave him a taste of what it's like to not have the FCC breathing down your neck. So I was super happy to have Mason come and join me for the podcast. Let's quit talking about it, and let's get into the podcast. This is episode number 48 with Mason.
It's the Audible Farm Podcast with your host, Peter Stockdale.
Oh, man. All right, we'll set it up now. Sitting down talking with Mason. That's Mason on Air, I guess, if you're going to look for him on Facebook. But you are the DJ man, you're the ones and twos, the guy responsible for the Regional Rock Hour.
Yeah.
That's correct, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So is that your brainchild?
Yeah, I think so. I might have stole the idea from someone.
Hey,
but I don't quite remember doing it.
Before we get too far into this, I stole this idea from you. So, like, don't be like, I stole it, because, like, this is literally, if nothing else, a giant homage to what you're doing on a radio.
I appreciate that, yeah.
All right, so let's, people might not know what it is. What is the Regional Rock Hour, man?
I play bands from around the area, sometimes stretching out, across the country. I think there's been a couple times even internationally.
Oh, cool.
Just lesser known bands that are more on like the regional level, like touring wise, or if they're like from Fort Dodge, that's an easy sell because it's local.
Yep.
Just about anything Iowa.
Yep.
Really easy. Anywhere. I mean, if they're coming around here and they're on that kind of more independent level, if they're not going to get the reach from a normal radio station, that's usually the type of bands I chose. Yeah, I mean, that's really cool, because as far as like my personal experience with it goes, I'd listened to it a handful of times, and I was just like, I joined Three Finger Betty a couple of years back, and I was like, hey, it might be worth it to bug Mason, like go up, you don't have to like necessarily drive up here to do an interview. You do a pretty good job with phone interviews and things like that, because you've got a decent amount of technology to help you out with that. So that's
kind of a beneficial thing for you, but you do in-studio interviews.
As much as I can. I prefer them to be in studio face-to-face.
Yeah, there's a reason I've only done 2 remote interviews on my podcast. It's difficult, isn't it?
It is. It is, especially when you get multiple people.
Oh, gosh.
Because then you don't know who you're talking to, and you have to, like, remember voices on top of names, and they're usually people you haven't even met in person before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Makes it really hard.
Oh, gosh, I could just imagine, unless the 2 voices, you got like one guy that's like gravelly, and then you got another guy that kind of talks like a higher pitch or something, you know, like that'd be the only way you could be able to tell them apart, but everybody sounds pretty much the same over the phone if you haven't met them, you know?
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
Oh, man, that'd be really difficult. Like, at least when I do mine, I do it like kind of Skype style for the most part. I can at least see the people that I'm talking to. It helps a little bit, but snagging the audio from having all of these things I can use for audio is kind of difficult for me as compared to, I don't want to say you have limitations set, but you've got like all the hardware and software kind of provided to you. It's not like you got to go hunt down and guess and check and try different styles out and see what works.
Well, I had to kind of do that to begin with. You know, we use Adobe Audition, which is a pretty standard program for recording. And it's hooked up through our phone lines through the board. So,
cool.
I mean, that's easy. So, like, I can see the wave files as they're coming through. Like, I can adjust levels.
Nice.
Like, really simply. But then again, it's, you know, also you lose the quality over the phone.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, that's definitely easier to do in person.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I mean, like, I've got a little mini studio at my place that I like to bring people to. Just like you said, it's so much easier. I've got everything set up there where I can see all the levels, adjust everything on the fly, etc. Whereas this, we're doing, I don't know what I want to call these, like a traveling interview. I just bring like a portable recorder. I still got like something I can check levels in front of me and adjust them if I want to, but it's not like I've got 1s and 2s I can tweak. There's not a nice digital interface I can look at too. It's not as easy as it looks.
Well, but I mean, it also cuts down on, you know, like that type of thing. What the Zoom is what I have like a smaller version of it that's not quite as intricate. Probably a little cheaper.
Yep.
Works really well for, like, it gets really good audio quality. I would say better than the phone line.
Oh, yeah.
But again, you have to be face to face, and it makes it a lot harder.
Yeah, it does make it difficult. And I mean, I've put these things up to the test. I've taken them out with me like in cars and things like that. I recently did an interview with Vince Benishek, and we just like did most of, like 95% of the interview was in a car, and it sounded pretty good. Like, you didn't pick up too much road noise if you adjust it correctly. But that still comes down to like the manipulation of the digital stuff after the fact, like post-production of audio. It's not something I'm a professional at. Did you go to school for this?
Yeah, I graduated from Iowa Central in the broadcasting program 2016.
Nice.
Yeah. I went right after high school in 2001. Flunked out, you know, just goofed around too much, and then decided to go back as a more grown up, and you know, went through it. Spent 3 years at a 2-year school. Yeah, basically. Yeah.
You know what? That parallels my story quite a bit. Like, I went back right out of high school, just kind of farted around and didn't really. I guess my problem is I just didn't care. I guess I didn't know what the deal was.
Yeah, I didn't give a shit my first go around.
Yeah, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't finish it. Probably should have at least finished it, but
I would show up. I'd do my on-air shifts on 88.1 The Point.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I was like the first one to get a show myself, like when I started.
Yep.
Because I'm like, all right, this is what I want to do. Had a decent voice for it, so it was just go ahead. You know, I dove right in, and I would show up for every air shift. It came to class time, and it's I'll learn it on air. You know, like,
yeah.
There was a lot of stuff I could have learned, and I just I didn't.
So you went for radio production both times then?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
So like mine, when I was in high school, I went for I was doing classes in high school while I was in high school, or college classes while I was still in high school. I was going to do computer networking, and then I was just like, meh, I don't really want to do this. So I did like web design when I went to college, and then I was like, meh, I don't really want to do this either. So I've put my finger in a lot of pies, and I haven't really like made all the right choices. But that accounting degree, you and I recently talked on one of your shows
the regional rock hour about me going back to school and doing stuff there, and I just finished school too. So like our stories are pretty close to the same, you know.
Yeah.
Did you try and do any radio stuff out of college, even though you didn't graduate?
No.
No.
I did an internship with, it would be Mix 94.5 and KWMT, which now is under the same blanket of 92.1, and like every station in Fort Dodge is under, like, there's 7 stations under one corporate umbrella.
Yeah.
And this was, they were Clear Channel, so it was a different company back then.
Yeah, I remember that
had
now.
the 2, and it was the studio right off the highway 169.
Yeah,
and,
now I remember.
Yeah.
Had the big radio tower that like fell down the one time.
Yeah, it actually, and that was when I was working. So they're like, you know what, well, we can put you on overnights. But I was doing Mix 94.5, and I wasn't feeling that as much as I was 88. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, like it fit my personality more to be doing the alternative rock. It was a lot heavier than, like, say it is now. It was more geared towards rock. But.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question then. So like that kind of, you liked your 88.1 The Point because that's like a college rock station. Like you said, it's kind of like alt rock or a little bit heavier stuff and stuff like that. But then you end up going towards, I don't know what you want to call 94.5, but it was pretty much just like anything from pop to like R&B, like
Yeah, back then though, it was also a lot of, like, it was also like kind of classic rock too. It was, like, their tagline was the best of the 80s, 90s, 70s, and today.
I remember that now.
Yeah. So like my first internship, we like, you know, I go out on like remote broadcasts with them.
Okay.
I would just voice track overnight shows from like midnight to 6, which would, pre-record instead of actually being in the studio for the 6 hours.
Yep.
And then there was a promotion they had going on where they took 2 limos to Ames to see the Eagles.
Oh, cool.
So it's like, I mean, you're not going to hear the Eagles on Mix now, but like back then, even though they were doing like the modern stuff, like you had multiple stations that were about the same thing though too, since they weren't owned by the same company.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah, even in the same town, that is.
Yeah.
You know, I get what you're saying. That's kind of one of those stations where you can just like turn it on in the lobby of an office, and it's non-offensive to anybody. And it plays something that everybody likes. You know, it's kind of one of those stations.
Yeah.
Do you think that was kind of one, like you kind of alluded a little bit to it, but do you think that's like one of the things you just didn't like the taste of music? It just didn't fit your style or your personality to be there and try and promote this music, or what exactly?
Yeah. I mean, I think that was it. That, and you know, again, it kind of went back to like the classes. Like if it didn't, like, I mean, if something didn't completely jump out and grab me, like I didn't really care about it. You know?
And
it's, you get a little older and you realize, well, maybe I do actually have to care about some stuff if, you know, like I'm going to be a fucking grown up.
Yeah,
like,
dude, totally. I'm sure you and I are close to the same age, 30-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, upper 30s.
Upper 30s. All right.
Yeah.
I just had a birthday. I'm somewhere in that lower 30s. So we're not too far off the same page here as far as being like generationally different. And I feel like I'm going through a lot of the same stuff that you did. Maybe even like at the same time in life that you did. Because it's right about the time I hit 30, I started just like, I don't want to say caring more about a lot of things, but it was like I was more willing to try at something I didn't care so much about, you know?
Yeah.
You know, whether it be going back to school or like, I had all but given up on playing music, and I just like started picking it back up again. And I was like, well, this is going to draw me zero benefit at all, pretty much. You know, it's not going to be for monetary gain. It's not going to be for fame or fortune or for ladies or anything like that, because it's laughable when you're 30 years old playing music to some extent, I guess. But it was one of those things where like I got to try and do this, and then once you do it and you get good at it, you care about it, and it starts to become part of your personality, and it's hard to lose that once you gain that back, you know.
Yeah. I was early 30s. I was working a job. I was making decent money as a kitchen manager, and you know, my wife was making good money too. And it was just I got burnt out on it. I started fucking hate it, you know. And I'm like, all right, well, like, kind of attitude started to show, you know. And they're like, well, like, okay, you know, we can't have you being a prick to everybody. Like, let me go. And And then I was like, all right, well, now what do I do?
Mm-hmm.
And I remembered that. And I'm like, well, even if, you know, like I decide not to go back into radio, at least I got a piece of paper that will show another employer that I care about.
Yeah.
You know,
you have the ability
progressing
to complete a project from start to finish, whether it take one class or
Yeah.
2-3 years worth of classes.
Yeah,
you know?
and I mean, most of the people that get radio degrees don't actually stay in radio because the jobs are limited and the money isn't that great.
Yeah.
But I mean, having the piece of paper looks really good.
Oh yeah, totally. And that's kind of one of those things too. Like I don't know what it was about my job, but it was grinding on me. Like you said, it just kind of burned me out, and I ended up just souring off to the whole idea of going to work every day. And it wasn't a good way to go about life, and it wasn't a good way to let anybody else see me in that light, and
Oh yeah.
I had a few people talk to me about it, and that was when it was just like, gotta do a life change, man. And whether it was small or big, I had to do something. So I was just like, well, back to school, I guess.
Yeah.
It could be worse, could be better. It's for what it is. It's pretty awesome. Like, congratulations to you first off for doing that. It's a huge weight to be lifted off your shoulders. It's a nice accomplishment to have too.
Oh yeah. No, I got it. Well, and I got to give a shout to the guy that fired me and really gave me that push. I mean, to this day, I mean, he's like, we're really cool now, but
That's good. That's
Yeah.
good. Yeah. And I mean, that's another thing. That's another thing about growing up is you can have a disagreement with somebody and still get along with them. You just cruise social media and it doesn't seem like it's that way, but as you go out into public though, and you just interact with people and you're like, why is everybody so civil here and then not civil on the internet?
well, and I'll tell you, that was another major change when I switched careers, was because working a regular job in a kitchen, like, I mean, I'm in the back, nobody sees me.
Yep.
Whatever I post on social media is whatever, and
Yep.
it's never really like, I mean, I don't take a hardcore stance left or right.
Yeah.
I think there's absurdity in all of it. I
Yes.
mean, there's so much gray area that I never really go black or white. But
Yep.
I mean, like, I've had the tendency to say just offensive shit to be offensive.
Yeah, totally.
And so like it was kind of, all right, I gotta
tone this down a notch. Yep.
watching that.
Yep. And I had that kind of a job. I worked a food service job where it was more like public. I was in the public eye quite a bit. Small town, so the things you said online kind of, people would see and blow them out of proportion. So they ended up trying to help truncate our social media presence the best they could by saying just don't mention us or anything about this place and you'll be good to go. And it's like, all right, that sounds good, because everybody's got to have an opinion, and it's kind of does suck when you're like in the public eye and you don't want to let your opinion out. Because I will have to say, like, since I started this podcast, my social media has pretty much been the most boring thing in the world because I don't want to let my opinions out. And when I do it, it usually seems to cheese off somebody so bad that I just delete the post within a day.
Oh yeah.
And it's happened once, but it's just the way that it works. I just hate having that little bit of extra obligation to keep everything is like pretty and nice and neat and tucked in corners. Plus, it's the internet, and everyone's going to blow everything out of proportion, anyways. Even if you're, like you said, even if you are making a joke.
Yeah. See, sarcasm doesn't translate that well in text.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
You like I mean, let's just say for an example, like if you're just like, what are you doing today? And then you were just like, hey, fuck you or whatever, like on a text message, I'd just be like, am I supposed to be offended? I don't know this guy very well,
Yeah.
And he's, it's like, you could just be like, well, we talked about this earlier or whatever, like it could be something like that, even as simple as a text message. But then when you blow it up into like somebody trying to rebuke somebody's opinion online, it's kind of gets a little asinine, I guess. You can't really state a fact or an opinion, or people are stating their opinions as facts and trying to use like that as their, that's whatever. We're not a social commentary podcast. I don't know how we got on this topic.
I don't either.
All right.
You normally do musicians,
I do,
right?
yeah. Well, it's, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you is because you have so much involvement with the music scene locally throughout the state. And like you said, even further with the Regional Rock Hour. It's such a great thing to have around here. I've steered a lot of people your direction to contact you, whether it be John from Three Finger Betty or whether it be the guys from TV Cop. You talked to them, and then they came up here and played a show. Let's see, I think they played with Americature.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and that's another thing is like I've gotten to know so many people around the area just from your show. So that way when I actually go out and see them live, I'm not quite as big of a stranger to them. I've got a little bit of something to lean on. I can at least go up to them and be like, I heard you on the radio, heard you say this or something. So I got an in.
Yeah.
And that's important to me because I don't know why I feel so awkward going out and talking to people in public, but
No, dude, I still struggle with the same thing. I mean, like I'll interview somebody, like over the phone. Like last month, it was the guy from Messer.
okay.
And then it's still like going up to him after and like, hey, I'm the guy from the radio.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I don't know, meeting new people is always just kind of fucking awkward anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does help having that, and that'll help build, relationships and shit when you got something to base it off of.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like one of the reasons I started doing this, because it was like I have a hard time interacting with people at shows, and sometimes I want to talk to them. And this was like a good excuse to talk to somebody, and then B, a good excuse for anybody else listening to bother this person about something they heard on here, So whether it be on social media at their next show, because I always try and post links and stuff to everything everybody's got going on. So, you are a musician. We have talked about this. You said you don't play any instruments, though.
No, I sing.
Yeah.
Me and my buddy Joel Hamlow have a group called the Hamson Devils.
Yeah.
We're on a bit of a hiatus right now, but I mean we've only played like a handful of gigs, but like the last go around, we were working on more original material.
Yeah.
Instead of just started as some covers, kind of just an acoustic. Prefer to play the short sets. We're not exactly good in long bursts.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I totally get that. I'm in a punk band that's. We could play 2 hours if we want to, but if you want us to play a half an hour, we will blow the roof off the joint.
Yeah.
It's one of those type of deals. So
yeah, it's a little more punch when it's shorter.
Yep.
In my opinion, like a 45 minute. But I mean, shit, we'll plan about half hour, 25 minutes of music, and it'll end up being fucking 40 minutes anyway.
Uh-huh.
Just kind of we'll get and go off on tangents or whatever.
Yep.
Throw in something extra, but. It's been a long time. It's been a while since we played. Last show we played was night before Thanksgiving. We opened up for Brutal Republic.
Yeah, I was actually going to mention something about that. So you said Hamson Devils, and that made me think instantly. Wasn't there something with you and Brutal Republic and like a faux rivalry you had started online?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's recap that because it's in my mind, but it's gray. I want to.
Well, I think it started with some flyers. It started with some flyers because they didn't put our name on the flyers, and they were posted up around town. So like, we took a couple markers. We'd take markers. We'd cross out Brutal Republic, and we'd write Hamson Devils. and then once Ober got wind of that, he's like, all right, it's on, and he wanted to do like an old school WWF style feud, and so that's how we started promoting it on air. Because Regional Rock Hour, Brutal's pretty heavy featured on the Regional Rock Hour.
Justifiably so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean that was a big part of it, and I'd bring Joel in, but on air I never mentioned that I was in the band.
Uh-huh.
It's actually kind of something to do with I don't know if legally it just made more sense not to, because self-promoting like that too.
Yeah, that conflict of interest. Your advertisers might be like, is he just using this to promote? Yeah, I totally get you. I get you.
Yeah, which the sponsor I have for the show, I really don't think she would give a shit, but
Yep.
Crave Tattoo now used to be Patty's Pub, but it was always Gina Batchelor, owner of both businesses.
Yeah,
fucking phenomenal person, absolutely love her.
Yeah. Dude, I got to tell my quick story about that. I told you about this last time I was here talking to you in the studio, and it was I've met her once, and it was at a show she had put on. She had done a show, sponsored a show at the Eagles Club upstairs.
Oh yeah.
And I was just like, yeah, I'll go to this thing or whatever. And I pull up in the driveway, and somebody's there, and they've got like just boxes of shit in their car, and they're like, hey, help me haul this upstairs. And I'm just like, no, I don't know you any more than the man in the moon. I ain't help you. And she's like, just help me. And I was like, all right, fine, whatever. Go upstairs. She pays my way in. And it was Gina. And I was just like, oh, God. This lady's the coolest. She could have just been like, fine, go fuck yourself or whatever. But but she was totally cool about it, even though I was short with her. And I've only talked to her one other time. And that's when I played down there with Three Finger Betty. And I was just like, dude, this is... I wanted to tell her about it, but I was still kind of embarrassed. Like, hey, you don't remember this, but this happened like 3 years ago. But yeah, she's totally cool, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
yeah, she's been a huge supporter since the start of the Regional Rock Hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did all that nonsense with you guys doing the WWE type feud kind of shake down? You said you mentioned it on the radio?
Yeah. You know, like Joel and Jeremy would kind of go on air, you know, like they were kind of bickering back and forth and all this, you know, and like, I don't know, it wasn't that fair for Joel because I was kind of taking their side, even though like I was on his.
Yep.
But I mean, it just kind of played into the whole angle of it. And,
yep.
You know, yeah, it was a total fuck around. And then when we went up there and actually played the show, a lot of it was, I mean, like opened it up with, "Hi, we're a Brutal Republic cover band," you know, like just dicking around. And, like we'd rip on them. And one thing I told Ober, I was like, "Yeah, you know, you should change your name to Dodge Podge because who the fuck knows who's playing in your band this week?" And, you know,
Dodge Podge?
Yeah, he'd just gone through like a couple changes. I think he had just figured out the current lineup. Like I think he had just gotten Vino at that point or something, and another guy had left. So yeah, it was just some good old ribbon.
Dude, that's so fun. That's awesome that you guys can actually do that and not take it the wrong way either. You know, have a close enough knit group of people around the Fort Dodge area to know that, like, even me listening or seeing it online, I knew it was a joke.
Yeah.
So it's like one of those types of deals where it's nobody's taking this the wrong way. Nobody's going to get accidentally offended on someone else's behalf.
Yeah.
You know, so that's totally cool. Like, I've tried to recreate something like that, like with Three Finger Betty and the Shit Kickers. We played a lot of shows together. We share a guitarist, and he writes a lot of the songs for both bands. It's John, the guy you talked to from Three Finger Betty.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, well, let's just start smack talking each other for no reason. So, like, if we're on the same bill, it's just like, hey, we're going to be here, and so are these other two awesome bands, and also the Shit Kickers, so you can pee during that if you want to. You know, and like
Yeah,
stuff like that. And then
absolutely.
the Shit Kickers will be like, just screw you guys, you know, and they'll just comment on it. And I don't know who thinks it's a joke or if anybody notices or whatever, but it's something fun to keep us entertained. And I don't know, I always love those kind of like faux rivalries to gain sort of popularity for something that's going on, whether or not it be a show or just either two bands or whatever. It just adds an extra dynamic to the show that other people might not add to just, you know, just putting a flyer up.
Yeah.
That's another one, putting a flyer up. Like, when was the last time you hung a flyer?
I personally, no, I've never done it.
Yeah.
Like I've never been like on the street team or, I do a lot of, most of my promoting is just done on air, you know, and social media, I'll share that stuff. But as far as going out and actually putting up flyers places, like it's been a few years.
Yeah.
It's been a few years.
You know, I have this conversation with some people privately, I guess, but I always think that, like, is the flyer game dead? Is it, you know, is it something that should go away and you're just wasting your time and money going to all these places? But at the same time, like,
I mean, if it's free, you know, if it's free advertisement, you know, I mean, you can usually get a bunch printed pretty cheap. A lot of bands are so DIY, they have their own person that can do can actually design the flyer. And, you know, I mean, so long as you're not paying somebody to do that shit for you, if, you know, you can get a good price on printing, you know, then it's, I mean, an extra flyer hanging, you know, at the grocery stores. I mean, people see it, you know. I'm sure it's hard for, like, the Shit Kickers to really put one up there.
Yeah, I mean,
you know, but
nail it to a tree in downtown Des Moines and hope somebody sees it. Or
yeah,
you know, that's another thing. You go to bigger cities. Where am I going to hang this flyer that people are going to walk? Like, music shop, maybe. Like,
well, no, like you said though too. I mean, like light posts. You see shit up on light posts, and it's a lot. The music scene's so much different in an actual city instead of a town like this. You know.
Yeah.
I go to as much local shit as I can, but there's not a whole lot of it that, you know, necessarily is in my personal music tastes. Yeah,
you know, I totally agree.
J. Clyde Band, phenomenal.
Yeah, just went and saw them a few weeks ago. They're so good.
Yeah. I mean, I'll see them every now and then, but like I don't really listen to country.
Yeah,
you know, and like the country rock is. I mean, it's fine. But like, yeah, I mean, I prefer to see like just live metal or punk, you know?
Yeah. Well, let's put it this way though too. Like, as for if somebody was just to like, here, put these headphones on, and it's got country rock, you'd be like, meh. But if you saw it live, you'd be like, yeah, this is way better than just listening to it on the headphones. So it lends itself to that musical appreciation, just going and seeing it live though too. So that's one thing I've always pointed at Jay Clyde Band for that, because it's not my favorite kind of music, but I love seeing those guys live. Yeah. They're so good.
Yeah. Well, and then like, seeing them live too makes you appreciate their recordings more, which their latest recording is really good.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like, just really high quality.
Yeah. Yeah.
Songwriting is top notch.
Yeah, dude, like, it's on point.
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe how good some of the songs those guys are writing are. And, it's like one of those deals where I don't care if you play some covers and fold in some originals. Like, you ask Joe Schmo sitting out here, they probably wouldn't even know that was not written by the Eagles or whatever, like whoever it be, So I love that aspect of going to see like the quote cover bands, because they're throwing in originals and sometimes you don't even notice. You know, Jay Clyde Band's definitely good at that. Like, they've got songs that I've either showed people I work with or like people I know that like country, and it's like, you got to check this out because these people are writing songs like this and they're out of like Manson, like. It's like the middle of nowhere, and these people are just killing it.
It's fucking crazy how much talent has actually come out of just Manson.
Yeah.
Between like them and the dudes from 22 Salute.
Yep.
And, the other guys from Riddled with Class, which, the Merritt brothers are in both.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, Nick and Levi both, very, very good musicians as well.
Yeah, dude. It's insane. I can't, and I can't believe that, like, over the past couple years, I don't know if it's me paying more attention to your show and kind of getting used to who's around here and who's playing, or finally interacting with people, or what it is, but I feel like it's blown up around here in the last, like, 2-3 years, maybe.
Yeah, it kind of seems like it. And that was, a big part of why I started the show was because there wasn't anything like it here.
Yeah, exactly.
And it really shocked me that there wasn't. Even when we had 105.1 in Ames, they did Sunday night or whatever.
Yeah, I think they called it the Garage Band.
Yes,
it was something like that, or the Vibrator or something.
Yeah,
they had a different name for something like that.
And then one station had like Iowa Unsigned.
Yeah.
So there's been other shit, but since Regional Rock Hour started. Even Rock 108, they kind of, I don't know if they took the idea from me, but it was after I started the Regional Rock Hour, they started doing a Sunday night show where it's, 2 hours of, like from the garage or whatever.
Yep, that's awesome.
So it's even, it probably wasn't me, but, just the fact that, getting that started and then getting more shows like that out there, and same with your podcast, just so long as people are being exposed to it more.
Exactly.
With the internet, there's so much shit to sift through.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice having that filter, coming through and okay, so here's hearing, about the bands, and a lot of them don't necessarily have that strong social media presence either,
Yep.
Which, everybody think, everybody's got a Facebook. It's easy. You'll know, running a personal Facebook page is a lot fucking different than running a business page or a show page or something.
Totally, dude.
Because you don't get nearly the fucking reach you do unless you're actually paying Facebook to get out there more.
Yeah. I've noticed that with my Facebook page for Audible Farm, depending on when I share during the day or who's tagged in what, or certain keywords that I use, sometimes the exposure is 20 people and sometimes it's 200, and I don't pay for anything, so it's kind of weird how that works.
If you don't, it seems like too though. If you can overdo it on the tagging people and stuff, because I've noticed that, Regional Rock Hour sponsored by Crave Tattoo, check out this band, and I'll tag all of them, and then it'll be 5 people reached.
Yep.
Yep. And notifications sometimes don't even come up when you're say I'll get tagged in something. Mm-hmm. There's times where since it's a business page or whatever, notifications won't even come to me about it.
Yep.
Which it's it's all just how it's built, you know. I mean, they're there to make money too. So
Yeah.
you know,
You're 100% right, though. It seems like the easiest thing in the world to set up like a Facebook page or whatever and just run it and have it be great and professional looking, but it's not that simple.
No,
you know?
no.
I mean, you have to actually like curate what you're going to put on there. Like you said, you can't just be posting nonsense all the time. But, oh my God, I can't even believe I'm going to talk about this. Three Finger Betty had a post where they were just like something Justin Bieber sucks or whatever. You know, just some random meme that we had shared.
All right.
And like 600 and some people reached, got shared like 4 times, and it's like this is the most popular post we've had this month was just like some random meme about Justin Bieber.
Yeah.
Okay, like, but like we're promoting a show and it's like 20 people saw it. Like, I don't know if that's any better. But that comes back down to flyers. If I'm going to promote a show on Facebook and only 20 people see it, maybe I want to slap a flyer at the Casey's in town or something. You know?
Yeah.
Well, at least people will walk past it.
Yeah. Anywhere you can do that, you know, and I mean, doing making the events on Facebook can help sometimes. I think
Yes.
you know, like. For actual events like that, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and inviting your friends and you know, encouraging others. I mean, having the fans and your own personal friends get behind what you're doing helps out
it does.
a fucking lot, too.
Dude, it does. But, you know, that's what we were kind of talking about, though. Like, if you have 48 flyers hanging up and you're just like, which one do I look at? I don't really care. But, like, if I go on my phone right now, there's like 27 events that I'm invited to that I haven't even responded to. If I see how many events are coming up next week, it's like 30 of them.
Oh, yeah.
You know? So, like, mine's so full that I just kind of cast a lot of that aside. And I'm assuming that's what everybody else does. Occasionally it'll be like Friday night and I'll be like, what's going on this weekend? I'm not leaving town. Who's playing what? And I'll, you know, that's when I was just like, you know, like, Jay Clyde Bland's playing in Lakeview. You know, maybe I'll just go check them out. It's only like an hour drive, and I drove down there to go check that out. So it is beneficial, but you have to actually go out and look at it and do that. And it's not always the case, even in my stance. Like I do know there's a lot of shows coming up. Like I said, I like to click interested on most of them just so they'll show up in my feed. But even then, we were at a show not too long ago. It's like, how do you figure out how many people are coming to your show? And it's like, all right. So if you have like 50 people that say they're going and 100 people say they're interested, what you do is that 50 people that are going, you find out how many bands are on the show. Let's say there's 4. All right, you can just assume there's 4 persons per band, so then you multiply that 4 by 4. That's 16. So you delete that because those are the 16 people that are in the bands that said they're going.
Yeah.
Assume they all have a significant other. Most of them do. So, like, let's just delete like another 16 off there. So that's 32 gone out of the 50 that said they were going.
Yeah.
And so now
a couple stragglers per each band. You got 8 more.
Yep.
And you got like 10 fans showing up.
Yeah. So, but then what do you do about those 100s? Okay, so that 100s, what you would do is you divide that number by 2. You would add 15, and then you'd multiply it by 0 because none of those interesteds care. You know, like, you know, we were talking about that at a show, just laughing our balls off. It was so funny, but like, dude, and the craziest part about that show is tons of people came and it was packed, and some of those interesteds came, you know, so you can't always discount them.
Yeah, well, and again, I mean, getting back to the flyers, there's people that just don't do social media at all. You know, they don't do the Facebook or Twitter or any of that shit. You know, which it's kind of hard to believe, but there's those people.
Yeah,
and a lot of them do enjoy the live music. So
yeah, I mean, like, I'm not going to point fingers at people, but, like, Jeremy Ober always had a weird stance about Brutal Republic where he would post stuff on his Reverb Nation page, and it would make these auto posts over to Facebook, and he would share those. And I was like, I love the way this looks. And he's just like, oh, it's just the easiest way to do it, you know? And I was but at least you're out there doing it. You know, there's some people that don't even do that. And like I said, I'm not going to point fingers at anybody over this band needs to do more promoting because maybe they do, maybe they don't, whatever. It's not my band. But it's a lot of work, though, too.
Oh, yeah.
Doing all that work is literally digital flyer hanging, and it takes just as much time as it would to drive around town and go into places and thumbtack stuff onto flyers. But I will have to say though, I see Jeremy Ober flyers everywhere, and I always notice them because it's got like the coolest picture of Jeremy on the front. It's just like Brutal Republic's going to be here, and you're like, sweet, you know.
Yeah.
So it is a nice reminder to go into like the Casey's by the college or wherever. I've seen them in Humboldt before at gas stations and stuff. So. And the flyer thing doesn't have to be super, super ridiculous. You don't have to create like a brand new flyer with all new graphics for every single show to get that in depth. Like I've seen some people hanging flyers where they will have like a picture of the band and it has their logo on it, like I'll just pick Three Finger Betty. It has like Three Finger Betty live, and then down below there's a white box, and they just they hand right in there. We're going to be here on this date at this time. So you have one flyer for every show, and all you have to do is like when you have a new show come out, just write it in there and go hang it up somewhere.
Yeah, see that would and I'm sure that's a lot easier. But making the flyers used to be like, I mean it still is an art form, I think, you know. But before like social media and computers, you look at like 20 years ago. I mean, like just hand making them, you know, like collage. You need like a lot of times it was all right, you know, like who's an artist who can actually like make this look cool, who can do something original for each one, you know. Collage shit was always like I always thought was just fucking neat as hell, you know. And the actually hand making the flyers, I thought was awesome.
I don't know why that just passed my mind. Like I was one of those people that automatically assumed computers and graphic design's always been there. You know, I didn't even think about like, somebody had to write this and like make it all by hand.
Oh yeah,
and then they had to copy it and print it. You know, and the whole like, oh man.
Yeah, doing like the ransom note lettering and shit, where you're cutting magazine letters out, and photocopying, and
oh god, I don't know why that just passed my mind. Like that was. Dude, that's crazy, because I did actually interview somebody at the Two Broke for the Arts Festival Fest down in Des Moines not too long ago, and they hand did some flyers for some shows up in the Minneapolis area, and that's pretty cool. Like I think that was the first time I'd ever seen that was once playing a show in Minneapolis, and there was a handmade flyer.
I think I'd be better at that than actually doing it on the computer, because I don't know like any of the fucking like Illustrator app or anything like Photoshop. I'm not proficient in that.
No, you know? I can do some of it, but no, I can't make it look fancy.
Yeah, no, I'm an audio guy.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So you can slice and dice audio every which way you want to. Like, did you like do all this? Like, okay, let me ask you this. Okay, it's gonna be crazy. So I do a lot of my like compressing and things like that on a digital level. Not so much like right now. I got a portable recorder with like nothing attached onto it. So when I put it on a computer, I've got to do all this compressing and et cetera, digitally, limiting, all that nonsense.
Oh, yeah.
So do you have like physical stuff that you use, or would you rather use software for this? And what's like the benefit of that?
Well, it's all software that I use basically. And each studio, like we got different studios here. So like if I'm producing something for later, each mic has a different sound, so it's just like kind of slightly tweaking on each one, you know, where I'm gonna, you know, how I'm going to do it. But say like if I'm in this one here where it's, you know, we're in the KZLB studio and there's processors actually on the mic. So it like, I mean, if I process digitally, it's gonna be like overdone.
Yes.
You know? So it's all just kind of going by ear. And I was kind of self-taught on it. Like, I mean, I went to school for it, but we were pretty much just, you know, okay, here you go. Here is the program. Mess around with it, you know, figure it out. Like
a lot of it comes down to that, though. I've found in like audio, because you go online, it's like, how do I do this? And there's 48 different people saying 47 different ways to do it. You know,
and you just got to figure out what way works best for you, what sounds best for you, and you know, every voice is different. And I mean, as far as like I don't want to get into like music production really or anything, because that's just so many more levels. That you're worrying about, but. You know, bringing a band in to play live during the regional rock hour, I love that. I mean, and it's, you know, being live, it's a lot easier than say, you know, like you're recording an album, because if there's a slight sound off, you know, people, well, it's live. You know. But if you put out an album like that, and a lot of times even like the music that we play on the show, like you know, I just urge people like, okay, give it to me when you're ready. You know, like. Like, I mean, I can't have, like, the, you know, demo shit with, like, where you hear a fucking you know, like a hum in the background or something, you know. But when you're live, so long as you can hear everything well, I've got a decent enough ear to where I can do a decent mix for live. And it's usually worked out pretty well, but.
Yeah. I mean, as far as I can tell, every time I've listened to your show, it sounds top notch, like absolutely as professional as it gets, you know, and it's one of the craziest things to think that, like, it's not like you guys don't have the money, technology, et cetera, with like the blanketed company kind of owning all the radio stations here, but it's just kind of mind blowing to be like, there's a show that's this well produced coming out of Fort Dodge, supporting musicians around the area, and not just this area, but beyond. Like I said, I've sent people from like the Iowa City area. Like I told him, like, hey, send your stuff to Mason. He'll do you justice, you know, and you do. It's such a godsend for the area around here. It's so great to have you, especially to have the big blowhorn of like the radio stations. Like radio's a quote unquote dying art form, but if you go into any business, they're playing the radio.
Oh yeah,
you know, so it's not a dying art form, you know. Like, and I've heard ads during the day for like, oh, you know, Mason's gonna have the regional rock hour tonight, you know, and it's just like, oh yeah, it's tonight, you know. And even if I don't get it tonight, I can go on your website and check it out the next day, you know. So, or maybe not the next day, but the day after.
Yeah, I usually put it up like the week after. I used to put the full shows up, and then I kind of didn't want to get into like, you know, like copywriting. I didn't really think it was necessarily fair for the bands if like all their music is there for free, like online at any time. Yep. So then it was more like the, you know, posting their links to like, okay, this is this band, you can go find them. Yep. And it would be more on like focusing on who was actually coming into the studio and doing the interviews or calling in for interviews and, you know, spotlighting that instead of just the, well, it was cause I don't have a guest every week. Yep. It's, you know, with doing everything else, and I'm not to a point where I'm getting, you know, like people clamoring to come in on the show. Like, you know, I mean, a lot of people know about it, but I've been doing it now a couple of years. So a lot of the local people I've had through here, you know, I mean, that's why we'll get, you know, Ober's been in half a dozen times, Clint Riedel from the Ramblers. He's still allowed, but yeah, I think we'll need to work on that the censor button.
Oh, it's hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, like I've had quite a few repeat guests, but and a lot of times too, it's just, you know, hey, it's, you know, people want to hear the music, so I'll just play the music, talk about where they're, you know, where you can catch them live, and that's about it. Yeah,
you do a really good job of that, like correlating, not just bringing somebody on, but being like, they're also going to be playing either this weekend or next week on Tuesday at this place in Fort Dodge. So if you're listening to this, you can go check them out, you know. Yeah. The benefit of that also, though, is like a lot of the musicians around here are so busy, they're playing shows like at least once a week or every other week or something like that. Yeah. So you got something to promote, you know, to tie it all in with. I also kind of dig the fact that you said you like to talk more so about like the person that came in and not necessarily like all about the band, you know, because you got to bug this person about like what they're kind of doing too, you know, like don't put like all of the band's music online and everything like that. I do like your take about what you're going to put online and where you're going to put it, because I've had an issue with like so many people tell me if you interview a musician, play one of their songs at the end and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, but then like, I just feel like it's weird. Like, not only am I going to have to maybe deal with some copyright issues, but at the same time, like, are you just going to listen to this once and then never go find their stuff, or you know, when do I put it at the end or in the middle, or, you know, I don't know. But you've done a really good job of being able to like split the interview apart in segments that sound really, really good, and then play music and then bring them back in and be like, all right, we were talking about this, you know, so. Do you think that just came with experience, or just like guessing and testing on the show, or did you have this like all in mind to kind of do this from the beginning?
It started a little different. Our normal, like during a normal hour, there's 3 commercial breaks. I thought that was too much, so I cut it down to 2. And then it was just, you know, first couple months, I think I got it figured out, like how I wanted to actually format it. Yeah. And it's still, I mean, there's times I have to switch it up because, you know, if a band's playing at 7:00, you know, and they can't necessarily be here, you know, all the way till 6. Yep. You know, so it's all just kind of playing it by ear, but just having the 2 commercial breaks normally helps out a lot, and just
helps split things up a little bit, you know. Yeah. You know, and that's one thing I thought about, like with that, is like you have the added benefit of being able to be like, all right, let's talk a little bit. All right, let's throw some music on, you know, pop the earphones off, and then we'll talk a little bit while the music's playing, and then we'll create some new ammo for when we come back, you know. Whereas what I'm doing is I go into a lot of these decently blind, I guess. Like I try my best. I've done before. I've done like all this research and come in. And I was like, I want to talk about all this stuff, and it just sounds really fabricated and stuff like that. Like, I want to talk about this thing. Tell me about it. And they're like, oh, here's what I have to tell about this. And it's like, all right, now tell me about this. You know, and you don't really dig into having a conversation with somebody. So that's like, I thought about that with this. Is like, is this more difficult than what you're doing, or is it really just adjacent to what you're doing, or is it like? Because like I didn't want to do exactly what you were doing. That was my big thing. Because it's you and I are only like 20 miles apart. Granted, mine's on the internet and yours is on the radio, but you can find yours on the internet too.
Sure,
Regional Rock Hours is all over the internet. I will post links to that in the description section of this podcast for sure.
Awesome.
But it's one of those things where I didn't want to copy what you were doing. So that's one reason I left music off initially. That's another reason I kind of tried to just be like, I want to have a one-on-one conversation with one person about what they're doing, whether it be this band, this band, this band. You know, so then you don't have to worry about just be like, I only want to bring in, so and so. I don't want to bring in like John Waugh, and we're only going to talk about Three Finger Betty stuff and no shit kicker stuff ever, you know. And it's like, you know, like just bring in John and let him talk about whatever he wants, whether it be like, I started playing music at this age, or like this was my favorite band, so I picked up a guitar, or like I was in these 47 bands or whatever. You know, like I try to just leave it free form, kind of like this, where I was just like, well, let's just talk a little bit about the Regional Rock Hour, and we'll talk about the Hamson Devils a little bit too. And that was pretty much all we had set up when we came in to talk about this. Yeah. And we've already covered 50 minutes.
Well, damn.
Yeah, it's mind blowing how fast it goes by, but at the same time, like, while it's all happening, you're like, oh gosh, I've got 4 minutes down, and then you're like, all right, I got 12 minutes down, and like, do you ever sit and think about that kind of stuff with this, or is it one of those things that with experience it all just kind of gets easier and easier no matter who's in here with you?
Well, doing just a straight interview, just talking, definitely a lot harder. You know, when I have the time to break up, if there's a lull in the conversation, it's, you know, okay, good, like we'll get out of it, because I mean. And then there's times where, like, we'll go too long, you know. I think, like, you were in here. I mean, shit. Well, we're like, there was a couple like 10-minute breaks, you know. We just got to rambling, and I mean, it was good. It was all interesting content, but didn't quite fit the format.
Nope.
But then again, with being a flexible format, it's like, well, okay, so it's one or two songs less that you'll hear this hour, you know.
Yep.
But as far as like just doing the straight long interviews. The more I go, the better it's been. One thing I will say, you know, like I've had the chance to interview some sort of famous people, and my very first one was Mickey Dolenz, of the Monkees.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I was nervous as shit about it. You know, I mean, like it's the Monkees, like, you know, I kept fucking around. I was like, I'm going to ask him what he's been up to since the Beatles. And I was so fucking nervous that when I actually did the interview, I asked him what he'd been up to since the Beatles.
Oh, man.
Yeah. It's like, well, I wasn't in the Beatles.
Oops.
Oh, yeah. That's right, Mickey. You weren't. Okay. You know, and they get easier each time.
Yeah.
You know, I ended up talking to him about a half hour after that still, you know, I mean, like just super, super nice guy, really cool guy. And, you know, Lita Ford was a pretty decent interview.
Oh, cool. I didn't know you interviewed her.
Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah. Fairly recently, Scott Stapp from Creed.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. That was just like a month and a half ago.
Dude,
like
is that online somewhere?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's on your Regional Rock Hour page?
It's yourfortdodge.com/Masons interviews.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
All the Regional Rock Hour stuff and all the interviews I do for that, like, you know, Mickey Dolenz was because I do mornings on like an oldies station, 105.9 The Beach.
Okay, yeah. Yep.
So yeah, that's when I ended up talking to him. Or that's one reason why I talked to him. He was coming and doing like an autograph signing. It was like the miniature Comic-Con that they're Wizard Con they were bringing through Des Moines.
Yep.
You know, since he was there, I had the opportunity to do it, and it's like opportunity jumps up. It was always like, all right, you know, this is gonna suck. You know, like some of my first interviews were promoting Blues Under the Trees.
Yep.
And they're blues artists that, you know, probably don't do a whole lot of interviews either. Mm-hmm. And me being fresh, they all fucking sucked.
Yeah,
you know, I mean,
totally get you, man.
They're all shitters. You know, Vicky Price, great musician and a very nice lady, because I was a shitty interviewer and she, you know, took it in stride.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just a few that, yeah, it just didn't always work out, you know, but the more I do it, the better I get.
Yeah.
You know? And that's fucking everything though, you know?
That's true. That's true. I mean, it's kind of crazy how you start to gain like little bits of confidence for doing that stuff. Like the first interview I did was with like one of my friends that I'd kind of talked to about the idea of doing this, and we were so green on it. That interview has like really low audio quality, and we're just kind of like, so what about this? And we just don't really, like, I don't really know what I'm doing, and he doesn't really know what I'm doing either. But like the next one was with a good buddy of mine, and we ended up just hem-hawing about playing guitar all the time. So that one was pretty good, and I was like, man, maybe I need to lean on some people on these first couple to kind of figure out what I'm doing.
Get the format down, get used to it.
Yep, and it's like, all right, I got to bring in people that I know can like handle this. So it was just like, Jeff Blummel, you're in, you know. Yeah, Jeff's like, I could listen to that guy talk all day long. You know, I got to bring him back on another interview sometime. But it's just crazy to think that like you've been doing this for how many years? 2.5, 3, 4? Regional Rock Hour.
Yeah, Regional Rock Hour started just over 2 years now.
Dang.
It was beginning of April 2017.
That's crazy, dude. Yeah. You know, I bet like I'm gonna ask you this: does it seem like time has flown by since then? Because like, to me, sometimes it's like I don't know if I'll be able to get an interview in this week or not, and then all of a sudden it's just like, oh, I've got like 4 in the can, and I'm waiting to get them all, you know, set out there. And
there's times like, okay, like, all right, I don't have anybody lined up like at all, and then there's times where like, oh no, we got to push it back a couple more weeks because I got people, you know.
Yep.
Like a lot of times I'll book out, you know, a few weeks. I try to get it as far out as possible. And then there's the occasional, you know, like, I mean, it's Friday nights at 5.
Yep.
Almost always live, but, you know, I mean, like summertime and, you know, I go to a lot of concerts and shit.
Yep.
So it's hard to do it live every time. There's a lot of bands that are flexible and will come in and record, and that's very helpful as well. But, yeah, fuck, what was the question?
I don't even remember, man. That's the best part about this is you just kind of keep talking, and I don't know. That's one of the things I think I found as an interviewer is like when I ask a question, the person answers it, then I give my 2 cents in, and if I forget where I'm going with it, I just ask another question at the end of it.
Yeah,
that's like, I don't know where I'm going with this, but maybe this person has an opinion on what I just said. So
I pivot all the time too. You know, I'd say it's weird being on this side of it.
I bet
it is.
Oh gosh, I bet.
I've never done it. So
you never had anybody interview you about what you're doing?
No, not in this format. No.
Oh gosh,
yeah.
And that's crazy because like I don't
not without being in handcuffs, getting my face slammed into a table or something. You know.
You know, that's crazy because like up here you do so much work for so many musicians, and I don't know any better way to say thank you for that than bringing you on the interview and talking about what you do. And that, you know, thank you very much for doing this. To be honest, you did this for me a handful of months back when I was graduating Iowa Central. I had dipped that guitar and made it. We talked about that. We talked about the bands I'm in. We talked a little bit about the podcast. That was when I was on here last, and it's just on the Regional Rock Hour with you last. And it was, you know, that's one of those things where I couldn't believe. I was so thankful that you did that for me. I couldn't believe that, you know, like you were going to go out there and just talk to me about all these things I had going on. And you know, and I know we've been trying to line this up a little bit, but summer's busy, you know.
Oh yeah.
And after a while, it's just like, oh man, what's Mason up to? I haven't talked to him in like a month, you know. So it's just like I'll bug him quick here, and he's like, let's do an interview, and it's like, all right, let's do this, you know. And it's weird how, like, you know, you and I were talking, I try and schedule stuff out, but sometimes it's like it won't work, so I'll just do 3 this week, and I have to tell this person, like, yours isn't going to come out for like 3 weeks, so we have to kind of like imagine, you know, talk vaguely about the past, like, you know, like this happened, you know, like I saw Jay Clyde Band like maybe 2 weeks ago, and here I am saying it's like, oh, this was a few weeks back, you know, so like you just, because this is going to come out on Thursday, and then you got to like do all this math in your head. Some people like don't want to do that, and some people. How about that? Have you ever done that with interviews where you kind of try and talk people into going that route with things, or do you just try and steer them around it without?
Because if it's a phone interview, or say it's a pre-recorded, you know, like they're playing a show Saturday night, it's going to air Friday. You know, like I'll straight up tell them, like, all right, pretend it's Friday. Like I'm going to say, hey, the show's tomorrow. Mm-hmm. You know, the show's tomorrow.
Yep.
Like, I mean, that's just how you got to go with it. And most of the time it works. There's always slips, you know, like yeah, come see us Saturday.
Yeah.
Come see us Saturday.
And
Yep, tomorrow.
Yep.
All right. You know. Oh yeah, tomorrow.
Yeah,
And it's
okay,
like, okay,
yeah.
don't oversell it now, asshole.
I fixed it, and now you're ruining it again.
Yeah.
You know. I totally get that though, because it does kind of feel weird. Like if it comes out on a Friday, it's pre-recorded, and they're like, Saturday, we got a show, come out Saturday, and it's like,
Yeah.
this Saturday or next Saturday.
Yeah, and that's
you know?
and that's always that's happened more with like the bigger acts, like Scott Stapp and the guy from like Scott Stapp, his interview. I think I talked to him. Well, I didn't really try to that one. I didn't try to like pass off as live or anything because it was all right. Hey, I talked to him. You'll hear it in pieces because it was like a 20-minute interview. And it was, 2 minutes at a time on air over like a week.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
That's how I did that. And then I just put the full thing up online. And, oh, hey, if you want to hear more of that, here's where you go.
Yep.
Yeah. Just cross-promote that.
That's smart. That's really smart.
Yeah. It really all depends. I mean, there's times where I'm upfront about it, like, hey, this is recorded. You know, but for the most part, it's, you got to portray the image of being live. Yeah.
And I mean, it's so tough. Like I've run into that issue. Like, do I do that on a podcast? Because like sometimes in a podcast they'll straight up tell you like, oh, 2 weeks ago I sat down with this person, we talked about this, here's the interview.
Yeah.
Or other times it's because I don't know, this isn't live for anybody don't be shocked that this isn't live because you're listening to it on demand, but it's like, it's one of those types of deals where I was always kind of weirded out by like, where do I draw the line as to exactly when this is recorded, or how do I talk about like, is this live, or tomorrow I'm doing this. But I try and fold it in there the best I can if I can. It's like, if you're listening to this the day it came out, then today I have a show. But if you're listening to it on the weekend that this comes out, you missed it. It's too bad. I had a show last Thursday then, so you kind of promote stuff in that fashion, I guess. I'm trying to find a way to help keep people current on these. Do you have any way to view analytics on what you're doing? Like how many people have listened on your website to the interview or whatever?
No. Well, we have, I guess I'm not part of those. I don't get results to those.
Oh yeah.
Like our web guy might, but yeah, like when it's, overall like page views. So, I mean, it's 7 different stations that are on there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I'm one of the more active jocks actually on the website. Like as far as like putting content on there, our news director and our web guy, but like as far as, regional rock hour and shit, and like the interviews, every now and then there'll be like a special, like somebody will do something. Jay Thomas, he's on Mix 94.5.
Oh, yeah.
He'll do like features, like, if he, he was just at, earlier this summer, he was at, Wow, Women of Wrestling.
Dude, cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
He did a bunch of interviews there. So like coming up soon, like he'll have a big, bunch of interviews and photos and just like a spot on the website where, it'll be there. And then after a while, it'll still be on there, but it won't be like, up front and prominent, like after, a certain amount of time or whatever. But,
yeah, dude, I'd seen him at a wrestling show a while back, and I was just like, I know you. And he's like, what? And I was like, no, I know who you are. Like, you used to be on the radio near me and all this other stuff. And he's just like, okay. Like he didn't, didn't know me from the Man in the Moon, and here I am bugging him, So that is kind of funny, though. Dude, that's super cool. That,
and that was kind of one of those opportunities that every now and then they just kind of fall in our lap. And he had the opportunity. They're like, hey, you want to come to Los Angeles and cover this? And I think like when the show comes out, he said, well, you'll see me actually in the crowd, because they set him down in the crowd, like, so they're watching the matches and
oh, that's cool,
and all that stuff, and then it's like between matches and shit is when he was doing the interviewing. So, yeah, I mean there's a lot of stuff that comes up that we get a chance to do, and that one just lucked out for him. So,
all right, I got one more question for you because we've eclipsed an hour, and if there's anything else you want to talk about, we will. But have you ever thought about trying to find a way to put the Regional Rock Hour in a podcast format, so that way you can let anybody listen to it anytime with like the podcast form? Because I'm going to be honest with you, on my computer, I've been to see the Regional Rock Hour page on your4dodge.com.
Yeah.
But on my phone, it's inconvenient.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to think of. Everyone's got a phone in their pocket anyways. Is there any way to make that so easy to listen to that you can't avoid it?
Yeah. Actually, no, that's a good idea. It's something that, corporate kind of, the Alpha Media has been really wanting us to do more of that. And just like a couple of months ago, one of the bosses asked, hey, if anybody is doing a podcast, Alpha would like to know about it, or is anybody planning on starting a podcast or anything like that?
Yeah.
So I think the resources are there. It's just I've been doing it like this so long now. It's, going through the change.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it'll take a little time, but no, actually, it probably wouldn't be that much harder.
Dude, I would love to have you as a peer, like, on a podcast platform so people could listen to, like, what you have to say and what I have to say, and, like, this real easy carry around in your phone, stream it from, in your car kind of deal, like
iTunes
everything. And not only that, but like it's not a super foreign thing. I've had people from some radio stations bug me about, hey, if I want to start a podcast, how do I do this? What's the easiest way to go about it? What kind of technology are you using? Blah, 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 blah. And it's like, dude, if you got the audio files, all you got to do is just pay somewhere to RSS feed it to everywhere. And then you just you go to Apple and you're like, hey, I've got a podcast. Here it is. Here's the website. And they're like, okay, give us like a week to look it over and we'll give you the thumbs up or thumbs down.
Oh, yeah.
And then you just go to the next website and you do it there. Usually if Apple picks it up, a whole bunch of other places will just pick it up automatically.
Yeah.
So you can literally, with like one fell swoop, just be like, hey, Apple, I've got this podcast. It's hosted over here. And they're like, all right, we got it. And then all these other websites are just like, hey, Apple's got it. We need it too.
Yeah. See, I'd have to go through, like a corporate type, since everything I do is here.
Yep.
I don't know if they actually Alpha Media probably technically owns the Regional Rock Hour.
Yeah. Yep.
Just because I'm on the clock when I do it.
Yep, totally makes sense.
It's part of my job.
Yep.
So, I don't think I could I probably could. I'd have to change the name of it, and then I wouldn't be able to promote it on radio.
Yeah.
But if I were to work with corporate, I'm sure that something could be
dude, that would be so killer. Like, I know not just from my own experience, but I know from other people's experiences that they would go that route to listen to that. Gives you a whole nother avenue of people to listen to. There's like I said, there's internet networks out there for Iowa, and we got all these podcasts in Iowa, like the Iowa Podcast Network, for example. Like I jumped in with them, and there's about 15 other podcasts total that were on that for last I checked, and I'm sure they'd love to just throw you right into the mix with everybody else, so there's definitely ways to listen to it, and or ways to put it out there for other people to listen to it in different forms. And it's not like I'm trying to tell you how to run your ship,
I appreciate it, and I understand, it's everything's more digital, and that has been kind of one of the general complaints about our site, is that it's not as mobile friendly as it should be.
And that was just like the hardest part about it was like, if I'm out of radio range because I'm playing a show on Friday night, I can't listen to your show, and then I forget about it because of how inconvenient it is on the phone. And it's not like that stops me from listening to it.
It's going to the actual site, and then you have to there's a streaming link that you can hear the radio station online from anywhere.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's about a minute lag from live. So, I mean, it's basically live,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But, the site itself, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. And I mean, but that's the other thing, though, is I've built websites. It's so hard to build one and organize the information in a fashion that's easy to find, and then make it translate easy to a phone. Anybody that's doing any website work out there, hats off to you, because I don't have the time to do it anymore. Oh, man. So we've encompassed an hour. We've talked about pretty much everything Regional Rock Hour. We talked Hamson Devils.
Yeah.
Yep. So we've covered pretty much everything you got going on. You do more supporting for music around here than anybody I know. So I got to say hats off to you for doing God's work, man.
Well, no, I gotta give it to Gina Batchelor, Crave Tattoo. When I started this show, I knew that my bosses wouldn't get behind it unless I was bringing in a little bit of money.
Uh-huh.
And so I basically found out what was the bare minimum that I had to get for this. And, I found out, they're like, okay, such and such, a week or a month, Perfect.
Yep.
Okay.
We make it happen.
Went to Gina. Gina completely open about it. Said, you got it. And since she was forced out of Patty's Pub, basically they, running the business, going well for her. Building got sold out from underneath of her.
Yep.
That's when she used her other business to keep supporting the show.
Yeah.
So Crave Tattoo. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. No, she's been a huge godsend too, and all the people we've had in here. You
had some killers in here, dude.
Yeah. All the guests that have come in. Fuck, man. I get live personal concerts all the time. It's fucking awesome.
Dude, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Dude, well, thanks for joining me on the podcast. I really appreciate you sitting down with me.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
What a great guy. We touched on it a little bit in the podcast, but he's actually had me on the Regional Rock Hour, and it was tons of cool to actually be on his show, and now he's been on my show, so I feel like all debts have been repaid. Karma, it's come full circle, whatever you want to say, but it was really, really great to sit down with Mason. He's a cool guy, just really, kind of chill about everything. And, it's also kind of funny because you just don't think you're doing a whole hour, and then before you know it, it's all over with. And most of my guests are just like, I don't know how I'm going to fill that. And, we fill it up really quick because we're already past an hour on this one. I just want to say thanks to Mason for getting me a nice spot in a vacant studio that they had at 92.1 there for about an hour, and we got to sit down and talk to each other. So huge tip of the cap for that. So thanks Mason for joining me on the podcast, and thanks for helping me out getting a little interview space set up. I really appreciate it, man. You know what? I also got to say thanks to Couchtown Coffee. This week's code is regional. And that will save you 20% on your order. It's regional because Mason runs that Regional Rock Hour. It's a really cool show. If you haven't checked that show out, check it out in the description section down below. I will have a link to maybe I'll put a whole pile of links down there, but I'll try and label them the best I can so you can figure out where Mason's DJ Facebook page is, because that will keep you up to date on what's going on in the Regional Rock Hour and beyond, as well as I'll try to post a listen link where you can go listen to all the Regional Rock Hours. But make sure you enter the code word regional while you're ordering your coffee this week from www.couchtowncoffee.com. August 15th through the 21st, you can save 20% because Couchtown is that cool. So make sure you think regional, you enter the code word regional, and you drink some local coffee and start your day off local. It's one of my favorite things to do. They're just constantly giving back, so I'm trying to do my part to help give back to them. I really appreciate them sponsoring the podcast. I also want to mention that last week I played a couple shows with one with Three Finger Betty and one with Unity. The show with Unity was really good. Dark Agenda played. I have played a show with them one other time, and they are a really good band from right here in Iowa. And then we opened up for Nova Rain and Helion Prime. And if you haven't heard either one of those bands, I highly recommend checking them out if you like metal. So they were really good bands. Three Finger Betty, we opened up for, let's see here, The Rumors and God Crutch. And God Crutch and The Rumors knocked it out of the park. Had to leave a little bit early when The Rumors started playing. I had to come back to town. That long drive back just kind of gets me every time. I don't know what the deal is. Did anybody see that video that was posted in the last couple weeks about, it's kind of an older video, but it resurfaced, and it was a whole bunch of Gibson guitars being run over by like a skid loader or some sort of something on rails. But yeah, it was kind of crazy because I read an article about it, and it said they were deemed unfit for public use, and that's why Gibson had them destroyed. And I don't know too much about it, but if anybody wants to, start a point of conversation with me about that, I would love to interact with you online. Just shoot me a line and maybe just drop something in the comments section down below on this episode or wherever you're listening, and I'll bug you back about it, because I thought that was kind of crazy. And I didn't know like which guest to bring it up to and when, and I didn't want to leave it too late to talk about it because the internet's kind of fast moving information, and so I was just kind of like, yeah, when do I talk about this? And I guess now seemed like a good time, but it was kind of crazy to see the Gibson guitars getting destroyed. And I don't know, if you got a take on it, let me hear you. I mean, of course, I read all the Facebook comments saying pretty much that Gibson guitars were, that's what they were worth, etc., etc., etc. But, or like, that's why Gibson's in the toilet, because they make all these guitars and just wreck them. But maybe I'll post a video on the Facebook page about it after this episode comes out. That's what I'll do. That'll be something I'll do that's a little interactive. I'll post a video of it, and just wait for it, the next day, and I'll post a video with all the bulldozer running over all those. They're Gibson Firebird X guitars, but they were, full of like electronics and all sorts of other goodies. There's some articles I read. I read one on Reverb.com that was talking about it. But yeah, it's just kind of crazy. So, anyways, maybe I'll post that Reverb article with the video. But anyways, that's what I got going on. I just wanted to say thanks to everybody for listening. Make sure you guys check out www.couchtowncoffee.com, and make sure you check out the Regional Rock Hour, because you will hear Three Finger Betty on there, as well as a plethora of other amazing bands from around the area. I haven't even touched the tip of the iceberg, and if you think I have my finger on the pulse, you should check out Mason's show. He seems to know all the people and have all the right questions to ask, so check out his show. It's on regionally, but like I said, you can check it out online. There will be in the description section down below links to where you can listen to that online. And make sure you check out Mason on Facebook, because he will be talking about the Regional Rock Hour on there pretty often. So check it out. It's a weekly show. It's on Fridays. It's going to be in the description section. So I'm out of here. I got to go make some more coffee. Apparently I'm not thinking quite straight here at the end of the podcast. So I will check you guys next week. Thank you very much for listening. Peace.